Welcome to Fulcrum Intel Digest, the podcast.
Welcome back. Today we're looking at a nation really pushed to the edge, Madagascar. What started just weeks ago, late September, as these really angry youth protests, people just demanding basics like power, clean water. Well, it spiraled incredibly fast. We saw it culminate in a full-blown military coup in Antananarivo.
A really dramatic escalation.
Exactly. And to make sense of this, we're leaning heavily on some critical intelligence today, specifically from Fulcrum Analytics. We're unpacking the insights from Alwyn Swartz report, Mutiny and Mayhem in Madagascar, a crucible of colonial shadows, power struggles, and regional risks.
Right. Our goal here is to really trace that line, from those initial, very local domestic issues right through to the military stepping in. We need to grasp the internal sparks, but also these wider entanglements, what the report calls the colonial shadows, and maybe most importantly, the potential fallout for the whole region, the regional risk.
We cover more topics like this every Monday and Friday. So if you'd like to stay up to date, click the subscribe button and give this video a like. Now let's jump in.
Okay, let's try and map this out. We're looking at this rapid sequence, late September protests boiling over into a military takeover by mid-October 2025. What's striking right away is how quickly failures in basic services just lit a political fire.
It really did. And it wasn't a slow burn either. The crisis, it exploded because of these daily struggles, right? Constant power cuts, lack of safe drinking water, but also the deeper stuff, corruption, no jobs. But the key difference this time, why these protests led to this outcome, it really seems to hinge on one particular military unit, CAP-PSAT.
The core of administrative and technical personnel. The elite guys.
Exactly.
And the Fulcrum report makes it clear this isn't just about service delivery protests. There's a history here, isn't there? A kind of pattern.
Oh, absolutely. You can't really understand the former president, Rajalina, or this coup without looking back at 2009. He first grabbed power in a coup back then. And guess who backed him? CAP-PSAT. They were his muscle, the elite faction that basically put it in charge.
Wow. So the very unit that made him.
Is the unit that broke him this time around. That's the critical moment, the real turning point in October.
So what exactly happened?
Well, the report details that on October 12th, CAP-PSAT openly sided with the protesters. They were ordered to crack down, and they just refused. Flat out refused.
That's huge.
It's game over at that point. It wasn't just ignoring orders, it was a public break. It effectively decapitated Rajalina's power base and triggered the coup practically overnight. It really hammers home this pattern. The military often calls the shots in Malagasy politics. Rajalina learned that the hard way, twice.
And that CAP-PSAT move, it seems like it opened the door wider to these colonial shadows the report talks about. Which brings us to Rajalina himself and something pretty controversial, his dual citizenship, French citizenship, right? Acquired in 2014.
Yeah, and this wasn't just some minor detail dug up during the coup. It had been a political issue for a while. For his nationalist critics, holding citizenship, holding allegiance, effectively, to the former colonial power. I mean, that was seen as a massive betrayal of sovereignty. It's like painting a target on your back.
Especially when France has its own strategic interests there. The report highlights Madagascar's position. It's seen as this crucial pivot in the Indian Ocean. And with BRICS countries, China, Russia, expanding their influence across Africa, France is clearly trying to hold on to its traditional sway.
That's the core of the geopolitical tension here. It's not subtle. Look at French President Macron's visit back in April 2025, the first by a French leader in 20 years. According to the source, that wasn't just a friendly visit. It was highly strategic.
Right. It was about business, wasn't it? Big economic deals, hydroelectric power, major energy investments involving the French company EDF, strategic minerals. It looked like a very deliberate move to deepen France's economic foothold.
Exactly. And think about how that plays out on the ground. If you're Malagasy facing constant blackouts, maybe struggling for clean water, and then you see massive deals being signed with a French energy giant, EDF, under a president who also holds French citizenship.
Yeah, the narrative writes itself, doesn't it? It feeds that feeling of being controlled from outside, that the leadership isn't fully sovereign, makes the whole system feel suspect.
Precisely. Which helps explain why things unraveled so fast once CAP-PSAT had made its move.
So let's walk through that timeline. CAP-PSAT defects on the 12th. Rajalina's position becomes impossible. The report says he fled the country on October 13th, went to an undisclosed location, claimed his life was in danger.
And here's the detail that just pours fuel on that nationalist fire. The intelligence suggests he reportedly left on a French military plane.
Wait, seriously, a French military plane?
That's what the source indicates.
So he's accused of being too close to France, of betraying sovereignty, and he escapes the resulting crisis on a French military aircraft.
It's incredibly potent symbolism, isn't it? For those who believed he was serving foreign interests, it's the ultimate confirmation.
While he's fleeing, the political ground shifts completely back home, the National Assembly. They'd been threatened with dissolution by Rajalina before, right?
Correct. But seeing the military tide turn, they moved fast. On October 14th, they ignored any previous threats, convened, and voted overwhelmingly to impeach him.
And then the military formally steps in.
Yes, they dissolved the Senate, the High Constitutional Court too. But interestingly, as the report notes, they kept the National Assembly intact.
Why do that? Why keep one part of the civilian structure?
It's often a calculated move in these situations. Keeping the assembly provides a kind of a veneer of political legitimacy, or at least continuity.
Yeah.
It's not a complete military dictatorship, even if the real power clearly lies with the armed forces now. A way to manage perceptions, maybe.
And their choice for interim leader seems significant too. Colonel Randrian-Arena, a CAPSAT commander.
And not just any commander. This is someone who had openly criticized Rajalina before. He was even arrested back in 2023, accused of being involved in a previous coup plot against Rajalina.
So a known opponent takes charge. He was sworn in on October 17th.
That's right. And he immediately promised military-led rule, but only for a transitional period up to 2 years, he said, before holding new elections.
A standard playbook, maybe? Trying to reassure international partners?
Perhaps. Though the immediate reality on the ground was violent. The report does mention UN figures citing over 22 deaths during those clashes leading up to the takeover. The former government disputed that number, but clearly it wasn't bloodless.
Okay, so we've got the domestic spark, the French connection, the colonial shadow. What about the ripple effects? The report title mentions regional risk. What does this instability mean for the neighbors, for SADC, the Southern African Development Community?
Well, the analysis suggests this crisis is like holding up a mirror to the whole SADC region. It highlights vulnerabilities that aren't unique to Madagascar. Weak governance, huge numbers of young people feeling left out, economic hardship, corruption. It creates this very real worry about a sort of copycat effect.
And the intelligence specifically flags South Africa as being particularly at risk of knock-on effects. Why them?
Because frankly, South Africa is dealing with many similar underlying issues. Deep socioeconomic divides, major frustrations over service delivery. We've seen protests there, too high youth unemployment. When people in a neighboring country see a government overthrown, sparked by protests over basic needs, and they see it happen because an elite military unit switched sides, well, it might give ideas to others feeling desperate. It shows that challenging the system outside of elections can bring change, however destabilizing.
A dangerous precedent.
Potentially, yes.
Yeah.
And this regional instability draws outside attention too, of course. The African Union, the AAU, reacted pretty quickly, suspended Madagascar, condemned the coup, standard procedure.
But what about SADC itself, the regional body?
That's where the report is quite critical.
Yeah.
It argues SADC didn't really step up with a strong, unified, decisive response.
Deja vu, didn't that happen after the 2009 coup too?
Exactly. It echoes the criticisms from back then. And when regional bodies seem hesitant or divided, it creates a vacuum.
A vacuum that other international players might be keen to fill.
Precisely. Which brings us back to the wider geopolitical stage. We've talked about France, but the report stresses we also need to consider Russia, China, Iran. They all have growing interests in the Indian Ocean region and across Africa.
So Madagascar could become a new arena for competition.
The source certainly raises that possibility. It suggests Madagascar might turn into a kind of battleground for proxy influence. You have a fragile state, valuable resources like strategic minerals, a potential decline in the former colonial power's influence. It's a recipe for external actors to jostle for position, and that obviously just adds another layer of instability.
It really paints a picture of, as the report calls it, a crucible. You've got these historical wounds from colonialism. You've got very real, urgent demands from young people for basics and accountability. And then you throw in the unpredictable element of domestic military power struggles and intense global competition.
That sums it up well, the potent mix. And maybe the key takeaway here, for you listening, is how interconnected it all is. How this plays out in Antananarivo, whether the military actually does oversee a transition back to civilian rule in 2 years, it won't just stay in Madagascar. It'll send signals across the continent and beyond.
Yeah, this Fulcrum analysis really drives home how something seemingly local, like anger over power cuts, can ignite a situation with truly global strategic implications. It affects security, economics, alliances far beyond the island itself, which leaves us with a really tricky question to ponder. The AU has suspended Madagascar. SADC's track record isn't exactly inspiring confidence. So thinking about that deep-seated nationalist sentiment, the resentment over French influence in economic deals, what can regional bodies actually do right now? What concrete steps could they take to help stabilize Madagascar without just making things worse, without pouring fuel on that anti-colonial fire?
That is the tightrope they have to walk, isn't it? A very delicate strategic challenge indeed.